evening, Chairman DeMaria and school board members. This, the 2017-18 proposed budget, I'm very, very proud of the work that the staff has done on it. As we present the budget, it's going to be presented just a little bit differently this year in that I'm going to be talking about the division and where the budget will take our division. Mr. Hawkins is going to talk about the numbers. He works with those numbers all the time, and I think he can provide great detail as to how we got to where we are today. So as we talk tonight, I'm going to begin with the division facts and our academic progress. Our student population, oops, let me catch up with myself. Our student population for this year, we're sitting at 77,678 kids, but who are they? As you can see, that we're a very diverse school system, and along with our diversity brings some budget pressures. Our economically disadvantaged numbers are 2% higher over last year at 62%. One of the great things that I'm very proud of is that our special education percentage, when I first came to Manassas, was around 17%. And through our RTI program, which has been very, very successful, we have served students without labeling them special education. And that's a great feat, and our teachers over the last 4 years have worked very, very hard. We have 42% of our students are learning English, and that learning can be that they don't speak English at all till the final exit point where we're actually supporting them in the classroom so that they can be successful. But with these type of budget pressures, I want to clarify, it's not the students that bring about the budget pressure, it's the services that we need to provide. So how are we doing? I would have to say that this year, our progress, we did not decline, but we remained a little bit the same. And I'm proud of that in that we continue to grow. In the past, I've reported to you 32% of our students being served in ESOL, and we're up to 42% now. So when you think about the fact that 42% and 42% of our students who are taking our tests are not totally fluent in English, I'm very proud of our test scores. I remain to be amazed with how we are holding in our mathematics. We continue to lead the state at our high school in our mathematics. The reading is our greatest challenge, and while it's not an excuse, I still maintain that when we test in English and our students are not fluent in English, there is an effect with our test scores. So at this time, what I'm going to do is let Mr. Hawkins talk to you about our state and local revenue, and then I'm going to come back and talk to you about what those numbers mean for Manassas City Public Schools.
Good evening. You know, one of the first challenges that we had to face with this budget cycle was we were notified from the governor what he calls technical adjustments. Well, it sounds like a small thing, but those technical adjustments cost Manassas City Public Schools over $750,000. From when the budget was adopted last year by the General Assembly till the governor's budget was released in December, on December the 21st of this year. So one of the things we're going to want to do tonight is explore, why. What are some of the reasons why this revenue forecast went down? As you can see, over the past decades, the amount of money that coming into the general fund has decreased significantly. Back in the 90s, it was almost 6%, and now it's all the way down to approximately 3%, 3.2%. We don't anticipate that growth being significant. We feel like that 3.2 or 3% is the new normal going forward. So what's caused some of this? Why is that happening? Well, some of it is self-inflicted. Some of it was due to the recession, but as you can see on the screen, approximately $2 billion of that funding came through self-inflicted wounds by having tax policy changes made by the state. Now, I'm not saying that whether these taxes are good or bad. I'm just saying, all of us may feel like, well, sales tax on food shouldn't be there, or land preservation is a good cause, we should have a tax cut on that. But those did reduce revenue to the general fund by $2 billion that were not made up in other areas. So on the screen, what we're going to show you now is on the blue bar is what the average per pupil cost that the state is giving across the top. So right now, looks like funding is going up from the state. The vast majority of this funding going up from the state are tied to mandates from the governor's office and from the General Assembly, primarily due to increases in the Virginia retirement system rates, which we'll talk about later on in the presentation. But one of the interesting things that we need to look at here is that the red line represents what the inflation adjusted numbers are. So while it looks like our numbers are going up, that same amount of money that we have now is worth about $41.74 adjusted for inflation. So we're actually being funded more like we were in 2006 in 2018. So just think about how much money, how much things have changed during that period of time. If we were funded just at the rate of inflation, nothing else has changed since that period of time, Manassas City Public Schools would receive $9.8 million more in state revenue than it does today. $9.8 million. So how does this look at the city level? So the blue line represents city funding on a per pupil basis, and you can see where we are now. So the blue line represents where we are in 2017, the year that we're living in now. And you can see that we're on a per pupil basis, we're approximately doing the same thing. We're being funded at what we were in 2006 on a per pupil basis. If we had kept up with, if we were being funded at the levels, if we had kept up with it like we should have been through that time based on a per pupil basis, Manassas City would be funding us at approximately $9 million more than we are making right now. So, there are significant funding shortfalls. You can see that we have been, when you think about all the changes that have been made in our lives, how many raises have been given, all the issues that we've had to deal with, this school system had to deal with in the last 10, 12 years, you can see that the school division has been good custodians of the taxpayers' funds. We've made the funds stretch and do what we had to do to be able to make it to where we are today. All the while, our enrollment is continuing to grow. You can see the past 10 years of enrollment growth. The enrollment has grown almost 17% and during the last 10 years. And we anticipate, or we're predicting or projecting that our enrollment will continue on that upward climb for the foreseeable future. One of the reasons why the state funding has been, we talked a little bit earlier about the mandates from the state, and I told you it was primarily VRS rates. You can see how underfunded the VRS system has been throughout the years. In fact, the VRS for teacher contributions were underfunded by $3.6 billion, not million, but billion dollars during this period of time. And the General Assembly made a commitment several years ago that we were going to fully fund the Virginia retirement system by 2018. And that's the reason why we've had such a steep incline of rate increases over this period of time. So that's the bad news. The good news is that we've made it through 2018 when it's incorporated in this budget, and we're at the appropriate amount. Hopefully, in next year's budget, when I say next year's, I'm talking about 2019 budget, we will not see any increases in the VRS rate. So let's look at the breakdown of our funding. About 81% of all of our budget is made up in salaries and benefits for our employees. This is not, Manassas City is not atypical of any other school division. It's common throughout the state. And the $97,889,000 in the operating fund that we're projecting is about 1.1% more than what it was this time last year when we were presenting the budget 12 months ago. So it hasn't changed significantly from last year. School-based, so now we're going to show you a listing of how the money is spent. The first line where we talk about school-based costs, so it's really showing that 3 out of every $4 is going to school-based cost. But this chart is a little deceptive, because we certainly spend special ed money and ESOL money. We certainly spend technology funds and student achievement funds all at the school-based level. So this number, while it's at approximately 75%, you know, if we were to put these other areas where the money is actually spent, this number would be much higher than it is at 75%. So let's look at the breakdown of our funds, where we have approximately, I showed you we had $97.8 million in the operating fund. The fund balance this year that we're predicting that we're going to use to balance is approximately $619,000 for the operating fund. That's down 80% from what it was in FY17. So we've made great strides in moving away from using our fund balance to run our operating fund. And that is a major undertaking, and that's something that we should continue to strive to do, is just get off of using our fund balance to use our to do our daily operations. This year in 17, it's about over $3 million, and we're down, and we're projecting for FY18 being down to $619,000. This will allow Manassas City Public Schools to be on a firm financial footing, not only for FY18, but future years going forward. Food Service Fund, their fund balance is down. Their fund balance is down by 43% from what it was last year as well. So we've made great strides in moving, getting off of our use of fund balance for daily operations. If you look at the different other types of funds, we've got approximately, we do have $3.4 million in the capital projects funds. We'll talk about that in a minute. Of that amount, $500,000 of that is coming from city proffers. Our debt service fund is $7.4 million, almost $7.5 million. That's an increase of approximately 3.4% from last year. And operating fund, again, has only increased about 1.1 million, or a little over 1% from last year at this time. So the capital improvement fund is, as shown, this has been approved by the board in June, and I want to bring it back to show you the projects that we have. When we talk about division-wide technology upgrades, we're referring to infrastructure, not laptops, not tablets, not anything within the schools. This is infrastructure upgrades to keep our systems running. We have 4 school buses that need to be replaced to keep our bus fleet within the serviceable lives as recommended by the Department of Education. And we do have 2 additional buses in there that we may need to purchase. We haven't committed ourselves to that, but that will be related to student enrollment, whether we need them or not. We have parking lot upgrades, improvements at Osborne, main gym bleacher replacement, and we have a huge project going forward of approximately almost $1.2 million in replacing the HVAC system at Osborne that is nearing its useful life. We have auditorium improvements at Metz and hallway flooring at Metz that are in desperate needs to need to be upgraded. And Mayfield and Hayden, we plan to have them painted this summer as well. as they fall within our current cycle of rotation for all the schools. So Dr. Magouyrk will take it over again.
So what do all of these numbers mean for our students and staff in Manassas City? There's several things that I want to talk about tonight, and one of those being that as we go through our process, I want to remind the board that we're now at level 4. Level 5 becomes your budget. The principals and their staffs identified their needs, and when they met with central office staff, my cabinet, they came with $107 million, almost $108 million in needs. In their presentations and discussions, sometimes we find duplications. Sometimes we find out that the central office budget will be paying for something because all schools will be receiving a certain service. Sometimes we have to, which was in large case here, we have to say not now because of limited funding. So once the staff looks at the school requests and the staff being the cabinet, once they look at the request, they prepare a budget for me. And they talk about what they feel like we should move forward on. And theirs came to $99 million. There's a few items that we're going to talk about that on the onset, after they started talking at level 2, that they came to me and said that, we really are going to have to take this out, that it isn't going to make it. But it's some items that are very, very important that I want to share with you tonight. And so I asked them to remain, and I removed them. So my final operating budget to you is $97,889,176. So what were those items? In the fall, I went to all schools and met with staff. And I told them that I know that we need to increase staff wages across scale. And my proposal was, I want to do that at 1%, but it's going to probably be, I know it's not where we need to be, but we'll get a start and we'll make a plan. And each consecutive year, we're going to continue working at it until we can become competitive again with Prince William County. I told them also that we've always given them a step increase, and I would fight for that. Because when we hire our teachers and we recruit them, we sit down with a salary scale and we say, at the end of 30 years, this is the least that you will be paid. And to me, it's very, very important that when they sign on with us, I want them for 30 years. I want our teachers to have the history. I want them to have the ability to lead our new people. It's valuable. And so I told them that no matter what, as long as I have, of course the board has that final say-so, but there will always be a recommendation of a step increase, because to not give a step increase in any single year affects that final destination at their 30-year retirement. And I just feel very strongly about it. And I also know that when we hire them, they know that end of that 30 years, the salary is going to be different, because over the lifetime of 30 years, there are cost of living increases. So the 2% of midpoint is that we have the administrative scale that is not, we still have one scale that's still mid-max, and that's why you see 2% of mid. And then I talked to them about a retention longevity plan. Before I became superintendent here, and it was back during the time when the school system was facing the recession, there was matching for the teachers. That they contribute to a retirement plan, and it was matched by Manassas City Public School Board. That doesn't exist any longer. And along with that was also tuition reimbursement that went away a long time ago. And our teachers still talk about it because other school systems have kept it. Now I have to say, other school systems kept theirs, but they've raised class sizes. They did away with certain programs, And some of them don't even offer programs, like Loudoun County only has a half-day kindergarten program. This school board had to make tough decisions, and I'm not finding fault with the tough decisions. I'm just trying to find ways that we can ease things back to where I wanted to begin talking about how we ease things back while still keeping our current standard. So in the retention longevity plan, what I was looking at was being able for every employee, when they sign at the beginning of their 4th year, at the beginning of their 8th, every 3 years at the beginning of their next year, because I want to make sure that they're coming back with us, it would be $500 to $1,000, depending on what we were able to afford, that would go into a 403B. I wouldn't be giving it to them in a bonus, because in a bonus, what happens is you pay taxes on it and everything comes out of it. If it was placed into a 403B, it would grow. And by the end of 30 years with us, they have that money that hopefully they're matching along the way. The tuition reimbursement always was at $60,000, and it's first come, first serve. And I shared all of these with them, telling them, in fact, I started out with the retention longevity was saying those with perfect attendance, we were going to give a certain amount of money. And the minute I started talking to teachers, they came up with a much better idea with the longevity plan, because there are some people that have, we have babies, we have kids that something happens and they have to take time away. It doesn't seem fair to punish our employees that are staying with us and working hard with us. So in listening to teachers, that's where the retention longevity plan was. We had the tuition reimbursement, first come, first served. And then I added the 3 additional early release days. They're not on the calendar that the teachers are looking at. The 3 early release days is something that I'm looking at that will give our teachers time. Time for them is very, very valuable. And so I know that parents sometimes scratch their heads over early release days, really, why aren't they in school? This messes up my day. But for teachers to have time to talk and think and share ideas and discuss how their kids are learning is important. And right now, one of the ways that we do that is with substitutes. And so while it's valuable then for our kids, for our teachers, the kids don't have their teacher in the classroom. So that would be a switch off. Instead of having substitutes come in so teachers can plan, we would have at least 3 early release days. I've asked the principals to look and consider and look at the calendar. Is 3 days what we need, or does it need to be 2, or does it need to be 4? I started with 3. There's no cost to the school system for it, and it's a benefit that I think is valuable to our teachers. And the bottom 2, I have no choice. The bottom 2 is what wreaks havoc with our budget. The VRS is 2 years early. It was supposed to be another whole biennial that we would go through before we reached that final point. General Assembly has decided, nope, we're going to push it back. We're going to do everything in the fast lane, $1.2 million. And they are not going to change their mind on it. I've talked with our legislators. It's just not going to happen. And there's not enough votes there for that. And then health insurance. I'm hoping that it's not 8%. We got lucky last year, and there was not an increase at all, which is why we're still standing where that's the average that other school divisions are seeing. We haven't heard yet, but we've got a plan for it just in case. So those were the benefit priorities, and they were really important enough that I went to meet with every single staff and talk with them about it. And then last year in the budget process, the school board asked us to look at what are the benefits that our teachers are receiving. And you charge the HR department to look at that. And the department also has looked at how can they improve those benefits so that teachers, even though that our salaries may not be where they want them to be, they see that we care and that we want them to stay with us because we value them. And I'm not really just talking about teachers. When I say teachers, I've told our staff, everyone is a teacher. Our bus drivers are teachers, our custodians are teachers, our maintenance, our technology. Everybody teaches our kids by the way they work or the encounters that they have during the school day and working with our students. So these are the other benefits. So if you want to see, we have 21 that we have identified that all of our teachers and staff members have access to. For 2017-18, I'm sure some of you have seen the advertisement for the 529, where they encourage people to save and prepay your college tuition tax-free. That's so important for us when we can really get the most out of our dollars. And so we'll be offering that for our staff next year. Tuition reimbursement, I've talked about that. That's every year for every teacher, first come, first serve, and then the 3 additional early release days, so a benefit of time. So now what I would like to talk a little bit about has to do with something that I've been alluding to and talking about, and that's our salary comparison. I think it's important for us to look this year at where we are. When I first came to the city, one of the things that we talked about and we worked on was our salary scale. And with the 5% that we were required to do with VRS, a 1% COLA, and then dealing with some of the dips that we had on our scale, we really got out there and we were leading. We actually edged ahead of Prince William. But school systems catch up, and while our staff gets a step increase, and not all school districts gives their step increases, we haven't had any more COLAs. And when I look at, what I look at is how we're able to recruit the best and brightest teachers. Because when they have increased VRS costs, when they have increased healthcare costs, when they're looking at, matching for alternate retirement programs, we've got to be able to tell them, this is what you get with us. Small school system, family environment, great place to raise your kids, great schools. That is all great, except when we're competing with salary differences. And I think that it's something that the school board feels strongly about, but that we've really got to stop and take a look and talk sincerely with our state legislators about how they are, when we look at how much education is being funded, as well as our local government. If we look at our masters, we see the same thing. So if somebody that we're trying to recruit, and they're thinking about every single dollar that they need to make, we're behind. So this leads into the next thing, that is it's kind of like a double pressure point. When we look at the benefits that we're trying to give to our employees, we're looking at our salary. The one up that I have is that every year they do get a step increase, and like I said, a lot of school systems don't give the step increase, they'll give a COLA. That salary scale looks wonderful, but all they're getting is a COLA, and they're not moving up the scale. So it's a two-edged sword, and we are providing that longevity for our employees. But now we've also got a teacher shortage. As you can tell, one of the things that was so startling to me is elementary education. Do you know that back, I'm going to age things now, back in the 90s and early 2000s, we had so many elementary teachers that often they became supply teachers or substitute teachers just to get their foot in the door. There were so many, they were just everywhere. They're number 2 in critical shortage now. And why? One of the reasons why is the heavy accountability, No Child Left Behind, the Every Student Succeeds Act now that's in place. The accountability on elementary school teachers is huge. Planning periods are 30 to 40 minutes, lunch period a quick 25, 30 minutes, and when they're with children all day teaching all subject areas. There's autonomy is less. Autonomy is less with principals. Autonomy is less with teachers. Autonomy is less with superintendents, where at the state and federal levels we're micromanaged. Right now there's 3 bills about discipline, telling how long we can suspend a student. In talking with our local legislators, I don't know about other school divisions and their length of suspensions and how they may be doing something that's not in sync. But we have policy and regulations that protect our students' safety and also protect our students' rights. And so I worry that we're continuing to have more bills that tie our hands. So when we look at the top 10, I want to add that really ESOL for us, with 42% of our students, ESOL is a critical shortage area for Manassas City, but it is not in the state, because overall across the state, the percentage of ESOL students is not that high. So what are our challenges? I think that you, as a board, need to be aware of what we're working and how we're working. Last year, in the springtime, during this period of time, we hired 86 teachers by when it was all said and done, between around January, February, till the right at 1st of September. Then we're done. But really, we weren't done, because we still have 11 positions we haven't filled because we don't have the teachers to fill them, and we have long-term subs in those classrooms. We have 233 teachers that require mentors. Now, some would think that that having mentors would be, is something that we're doing just because we want to do that. But mentors we're required to mentor our teachers in their first 3 years. And we do a very, very good job. Our program was designed by our mentors and mentorees, and I'm very proud of the work that they do. You'll see that we have career switchers. There's 7 that we have in our school division. A career switcher is the hardest position to me for anyone coming in, because when you go through to study to be a teacher, you have years of preparation. A career switcher still does the preparation, but it's a much quicker pathway. And where you see provisionally certified, 66 of our teachers, that's because we are recruiting outside the state of Virginia from other states, and they have to pass tests, take different courses because of the certification process that we have in Virginia. So with those provisionally certified, while they have 3 years, as you all know, there's tests that they have to take, and in their first year, they have to show an intent to stay the track and get the requirements completed. So as we look at the number of probationary and our critical shortage teachers, probationary means those teachers that are not on continuing contract. So we have 223 teachers that are probationary. It doesn't mean they've done anything wrong. It's just that this is before they become certified. I also need to let you know that we have a hard to fill division. That doesn't mean that we've done anything wrong. Hard to fill means because of our economically disadvantaged students and the number of ESOL kids that we have. It has nothing to do with the system itself, but our teachers have to work so very hard. And they're not just focused on the students with challenges. As Mr. Albrecht brought up, we have some very bright students. So you're talking about teachers that have to meet both ends of the scale in getting kids ready either for graduation and going into the workforce or graduation going to college. So I think that it's so interesting. When you see that 38% of our teachers require mentors, do you also realize that 38% of our teachers need to be mentors? So you're looking at 60%, about almost 70% of our staff having to participate in this program, providing support to staff. So where all this is going is I'm trying to, all year long, it bothers me when we don't have a certified teacher in every single classroom. It bothers me that we have a teacher shortage and that people aren't choosing to become teachers. My recommendation is that to solve the problem that we currently have is to return all intervention teachers back to their classroom positions and provide students with intervention services through PCG, Education State Time Intervention Services. As we thought about this, I really figured out that I was on the right track in approving this and going along and making this decision, because the numbers are out for next year, and what we see is that they're expecting to see a shortage. That means there will be 6,392 teachers missing from classrooms next year. 6,392. It's an increase of 2,130. I know that this board supports our staff, but something has to be done across this nation to have people understand that being a teacher is a very proud occupation, one that people value and trust, and that they don't need to be micromanaged, and that that public education is not something that is for second-class citizens. And what's happening is we don't have teachers. So we hired 86 teachers last year. I'm recommending that we put all 34 of our interventionists back in the classroom. They are our best and our brightest. They've been providing support to students that are more than 2 grade levels behind. Right now, the current number of positions that we have open is 23, and we have plus the 11 unfilled positions from this year. I can't sleep at night thinking that I'm going to have to fill positions from this year before I can even get started until next year. So, what are the interventions areas of certification? Every one of the single areas where we have a shortage. I met with them today, and we talked about all of this and why we're doing what we're doing, because I couldn't come here to talk to you tonight and to the public in general without letting these fine people know that they have done a wonderful job. They've carried our children, very far. They've supported our teachers. When I first got here, some of the things I was hearing from the community was the kids need more assistance, the teachers need more assistance with kids in the classroom, because the ones with the critical need are requiring the most attention. So what we did was we had coaches that were working with students and teachers. Now we have coaches that only work with teachers and interventionists that only work with students. I'm not doing away with interventionists. We're going to contract those services because I need teachers in the classroom. PCG currently works with Virginia Beach, and Virginia Beach has just renewed its 5-year contract with them. And I've talked with the superintendent. He's been very pleased with the work that they do. When they come in, they will use our resources. They will do things our way. We will train them. We will have the same number of interventionists in the school. The only difference is they won't be our employees. They will be PCG employees. They will also, there is a component of time that our teachers will gain back, because PCG's employees will be doing a lot of the recording of data that our teachers languish over now. Anybody can talk to a teacher and they'll tell you they're so tired of all the paperwork. And this company can help us in that respect. So what do our unmet requests look like? So our first listing is personnel requests. These are the requests, the extra requests that the schools made. As you will see, the retention longevity plan and the 1% COLA across scale, those were mine. The rest came from across the division, and you can see where they came from. When we look at non-personnel requests, you'll see cosmetology storefront. Mr. Hawkins is going to work on that, finding the $50,000. All of our CTE programs, if they are service providers, are supposed to have a storefront for which the students practice dealing with the public and serving the public, so that when they leave, they understand how the business truly works. Cosmetology needs a storefront so that citizens of Manassas can make appointments and come in and get their hair done, and it functions and looks like a store. And so that is what that would amount to. On the bottom, you'll see special program teachers for Round and Dean. They're on the runway. They're almost ready to take off. They haven't come before you yet with their plans for where they're taking their schools, but it's coming. And if you'll remember the programs like I'm talking about, we have Baldwin that's looking at Project Lead the Way, that will start Project Lead the Way this fall. We have, over at Hayden, we have the Spanish dual immersion program that will begin its second year. And at Weems, we have the Talents and Gifts program that will be in its fourth year. So we've got a lot going on. The schools are finding what their children and their communities need. Those two items will have to be funded next year. Then when we look at gifted and talented expansion, the gifted committee, our parents have worked 2 years ago, worked at a plan that we would implement to serve our gifted students, because we have students that we can't serve right now because of the model that we're using. We can identify far more students if we look at academic areas. And right now that's not available to them. And that's one of the other areas that didn't make the cut. And then finally, in transportation, to restore the 4-tier bus schedule. I continue to get comments from parents as well as teachers. They want their kids home before 4:30 in the afternoon. Right now, the way I see it, though, is we're opening Baldwin Elementary in the fall. Baldwin Intermediate. We are going to be running 2 intermediate schools at the same time. Not putting our Tier 4 back into place this fall does not give me heartache, because we need to be doing things a little bit at a time. And right now, as we look at Osborne High School's release, Baldwin Intermediate's release, Baldwin Elementary's release time, we need to make sure that we don't, and then the VRE and everything else that goes on in that location, we need to make sure that if we do restore the 4-year tier plan, that it all works together in sync. So we really do need to have Baldwin Intermediate running before we start talking about how we want to go back to a 4-tier plan. And then finally, this is where you'll find the positions that existed and that we reduced. You'll see where our interventionists are. You'll see that due to enrollment at Dean, we eliminated a 1st grade teacher position, in Hayden, a 4th grade position. I want to remind you that the way that when we fund our budget according to our warm body count, when we look at what we think our enrollment's going to be the next year, we do not increase it over any amount. So this budget is built around students being rolled up, and then however many kindergarten students there are this year, having the same number of kindergarten students the next year. So where does that finally put us? That's where our $11.8 million lies. Last year it was about $8 million. Our unmet needs are growing. There's much ahead of us much that we have ahead of us in the upcoming years, and public education continues to be greatly managed by the state and federal government with little funding that follows. If we want excellent public schools, we're going to have to look at factors such as benefits, classes and course loads, salaries, and teacher administrator voice. I want to thank the school board for the support that you give our schools and the leadership you provide our schools. And I want to invite the public to join you as our school board as you begin working on the budget. I respectfully submit this budget.
Thank you, Dr. Magouyrk. That was a lot of information. We appreciate it very much. I'm sure we have lots of questions.